Hello everyone, Dr. Susan Brown at the Center for Better Bones. For years I've been telling you that stress can damage bone, and we see this through clients. I've seen hundreds of clients, thousands of clients who ask me, is stress damaging my bone? And I can tell you, yes, it certainly is. We have known for some time that the stress hormone, particularly cortisol, epinephrine, those hormones we give out when we're in a stressed and frightened state, that they can directly damage bone. This is very well documented. Now there's a whole new study this week, a great big study from a major researcher at Columbia University, Karsensky. This professor who has worked for 20 years studying one bone protein, and that bone protein is called osteocalcin. That is a protein that bone produces that stimulates the bone to build new bone cells. In other words, it's a bone-forming protein, a very important protein for new bone. Now what they found, that protein plays a big role in the stress response. And I'm arguing that that protein is actually sacrificed, taken out of bone, put it into the body at large to protect the body in a stress response. So here's how the story goes. These researchers discovered that when you have a fear, a fright response, a very serious, fearful, threatening event, that message of fear is sent to the part of the brain called the amygdala. That amygdala takes that response and says, whoa, there's a really terrific danger. And what it does in this case is it sends that bone protein, osteocalcin, flooding into the blood. It takes it out of bone and puts it into the blood. And it makes sure that that osteocalcin is active. Osteocalcin can be inactive or active. And it's activated by vitamin K, interestingly enough, and that's why we're always talking about you need adequate vitamin K in your bone program. So the stress sends the amygdala a message. The amygdala says, get that osteocalcin out of the bone, into the blood, have it be in its active form, and it does that by having the osteocalcin take on more glutamate, which is a neurotransmitter that allows it to stay in the active form. And in the active form, then what it does is it floods the blood and it serves as a turnoff to the parasympathetic system. If you remember, our body maintains balance with all these stresses by the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight. I got to get out of here, I got to save ourselves, there's a tiger on my tail. Really that urgency, that surge of energy, those hormones that say, let's stop digesting, let's stop resting, let's get ready to fight. That's a sympathetic nervous system, and it's balanced by the parasympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system we call the rest and relaxation, or the rest and digest. It's after the fight, you sit down, the lion starts eating grass, starts relaxing, the deer that's been chased by the enemy starts to relax. Everything relaxes. We maintain that balance of the relaxation response and the stress response. Of course, what happens today, many of us are programmed in a constant fear response. It's like there's always a tiger on our tail. From the thoughts we create, there's not enough time, there's not enough this, there's not enough money. We create in our minds an immense amount of stress, and in our environment, because it's a very complex and tricky environment we live in. So, how this affects bone? That major protein from bone is put into the blood, and it's put into the blood to turn off that relaxation response. What happens? The fight or flight response is allowed to go without any controls, to run full throttle. And the researchers speculate that this is also kind of a backup to the adrenal system, because that flight or fright response, that sympathetic nervous system getting into high gear, we got to get out of here, we're going to die, that is charged and fueled by the adrenals, by cortisol, by epinephrine, by norepinephrine, all the adrenal stress hormones. If the adrenals are weak, this bone protein serves as a backup. But they also say even if the adrenals aren't weak, apparently this bone protein is used, and I would say sacrificed, to deal with the stress response. So in conclusion, to me, I think bone is the great giver. It will give of its minerals if you need pH balance to make life survive, because your blood cannot have the pH that's too acid or else you will die within minutes. Its bone sacrifices itself to give its calcium because blood calcium also must be very stable. And now we see that bone also is willing to sacrifice its major bone building protein called osteocalcin to help us deal with that stress response. It's pretty fascinating. Bone indeed is the great giver, so we should take care of the great giver. All 6 steps to the Better Bones, Better Body program are meant to enhance bone strength, and we can see that bone strength then allows us the surplus to serve these other emergency needs. And we should try to avoid the emergency needs. Get a good alkaline diet, get all the bone nutrients, and really think to minimize stress. I'll be talking a lot about stress. In today's world, a lot of that stress we create through our own neural pathways. Science is discovering all sorts of ways to create new neural pathways. We'll be talking about that soon. In the meantime, relax, take care of your skeleton, for indeed it takes care of you.